Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the IFAI Military Division webinar, Introduction to Military Contract Bidding. My name is Jennifer Fennell. I'm the Director of Procurement with Polo Custom Products and Chair of the Military Advisory Board. I'm going to be moderating today's webinar. Before we begin, I wanted to take a moment to review the functionality for the question and answer session at the end of the webinar. You'll have an opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing into the questions box of the control panel. You may send your questions in at any time. I'll collect those and address them during the question and answer session at the end of the presentation. Please also note that today's presentation, a PDF, will be sent out and is also currently available under the handout section of your control panel. In addition, a recorded link to the webinar and the slide deck will be emailed to you later this week. So now I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters. Mary Phelan is the Division Manager of Government and Defense at Polo Custom Products. She worked in various roles in the government contracting realm, from auditing proposals at the Defense Contract Audit Agency to project and program management for large defense contractors. And Jeff Papalia, Textiles Program Manager at National Industries for the Blind, or NIB. Jeff also serves as Vice Chair on the Military Division Advisory Board. Please welcome Mary and Jeff.
Thank you, Jennifer. Again, my name is Jeff Papalia, and I am the Textile Program Manager with NIB, which is the National Industries for the Blind. And we are going to get started if everybody's ready. So if they could go to the second slide. And the webinar should continually walk through this as we do our conversation piece. The U.S. government is the largest buyer of goods and services in the world. Everyone can participate in getting a part of the business. The first step in seeking out any government contract is to make sure you have registered for some basic business information, such as a DUNS number and a tax ID number. Also important is a commercial and government entity, which is referred to as a cage code. Each location facility that provides goods or services needs its own unique cage code. Cage codes will be used for various purposes in contracting to identify each supplier and locations where work will be performed and inspected, and for payment. The DLA assigns cage codes, or they can also be assigned automatically as part of the System for Award Management, also known as the SAM registration. You will need to understand what kinds of products or services you want to offer and register those as well. Those fall into both North American Industry Classification System, or NAICS code, categories, and FCS or PCS, and the classification codes, so you are covered on any type of bids that fall under these categories. And we'll be getting into this a little more in detail when Mary is presenting further along on her slides. NAICS and classification codes are maintained by the Census Bureau, and they are reviewed and or revised every 5 years, the last revision taking place in 2017. The Census Bureau site has a complete manual that can be downloaded in case the short description needs more explanation of what is included in each code. If you just want a quick download in Excel format with size standards, that is available on sba.gov. You do need to specify one primary NAICS code. Codes can be added or deleted from your profile at any time, but please be aware that you cannot be awarded a contract that has a NAICS you are not registered for. You are not prevented from bidding, but if awarded, it needs to be added as soon as possible. It's a good practice to add the code if you don't have it already as part of your proposal preparation process. And as you can see on that first presentation slide, all of those have links that you can automatically click on to start the process. Okay, next slide, please. The most consolidated and comprehensive place to look for government purchase is on the website fbo.gov, or commonly known as FedBizOps. The link is shown here. Any government procurement over $25,000 is posted here, so you will see anywhere from 30 to 40,000 listings per day, depending what time of year it is. July to September are usually the heaviest posting months as the government fiscal year wraps up on September 30th, and agencies are working to get their allocated dollars spent in time. Obviously, this is a lot of information to sift through. Be advised that not all of the postings are current and for one reason or another do not get archived. The best way to attack this volume of data is to set up your own tailored searches. There are several different ways to approach your searches, and it is advised to save them a couple different ways just to ensure you capture everything that's applicable to your company. You don't want to miss that one big one that you're looking for. A very effective search is by keyword. One keyword like cloth will narrow your searches to targeted postings. The more specific you can get, the better, but it is a fine balance, as sometimes the contracting officer may use different language in the postings. So that's where having separate searches on NAICS codes and classification codes come in handy. You might end up capturing duplicate postings, but it is better than missing a golden opportunity. Also, if you put several words together, you need to be separated by capital letters, or you will get postings that can contain each keyword. For example, if I type in tent floor, I have over 1,500 listings because it's providing all the flooring opportunities, carpeting, etc. When tent floor is separated by the word in caps, I only get 7 postings. You will find this much better when you're positioning yourself for these postings. Searches can be further refined by special set-asides, which we will get to shortly. The set-asides are helpful, for example, if you are a small business and if the solicitation is set aside for only small businesses to compete, you don't have to go up against big companies on that bid. Perhaps you only do business with a couple of different agencies, like the Department of Homeland Security or Defense Logistics Agency Troop Support, known as DLA Troop Support, the Clothing and Textile Division headquartered in Philadelphia. You can set a specific search just to target those agencies. There are other filters that can be used, like the posted date or place of performance, but the most commonly used ones are really the keywords, NAICS and classification codes, or targeted agencies. Okay, next slide, please. There are different types of notices that will be posted on FedBizOps. In a sources sought notice, the government is seeking out companies that have the ability to make a product or provide a service. They are surveying the market to see if there are enough companies to competitively bid an item or warrant a set-aside for a solicitation. If at least 2 companies respond to a sources sought notice and they are both small companies, technically the bid can be set aside for small companies only to participate in that bid. The next notice is a pre-solicitation notice. This is more of a heads up, hey guys, this is coming down the pipeline, and do whatever prep work you might need to do if you want to bid on this in a matter of days, weeks, or even months. Sometimes with a bid, the government will ask for PDMs or a product demonstration model, so you will have to submit a finished sample of the item along with your official bid. And it takes time to get materials in, request patterns, so the pre-solicitation notice is very helpful. The combined synopsis is the actual bid posting, and it will contain the proposal forms that need to be filled out for the most part. Also, it may or may not contain any drawings that needed as part of that bid. Normally, these need to be pulled from another system called a C folder, but the link to the drawings may be in the solicitation notice. The notice may also reference certain military specifications which need to be retrieved from other websites. In a perfect world, every product in its life cycle will start with the sources sought, then move to a pre-solicitation notice, then a combined synopsis. This is not always the case, however. Most of the time, the contracting officer skips right to the combined synopsis, especially if it has a known NSN, which is the national stock number, and there is known competition. Frequently, the turnaround time of the combined synopsis is short, a couple of days up to a week or two, but not long. So you need to act quickly if that is the only notice you get. Also, along the life cycle of the postings, there will be modifications, amendments, or cancellations. These should be monitored as well, as they are not always connected to the original posting, but may be posted separately, and you don't want to miss the latest. Award postings are just that. Who won the bid? This is helpful to look at if you did bid on something, although you will be notified by email separately if you did not win the bid. But it is also a useful tool to stay on top of who your competitors are, along with what that bid was awarded with all the details needed. Special notices are sometimes published by an agency regarding upcoming meetings like industry days, etc., that are upcoming and to save the date. Other lesser used notices are sole source justifications, in which case you cannot bid unless you are the named source, or a similar one called J&A, which is justification and approval of using single source for the bid or award. On the next slide, labeled as set-asides, certain solicitations will be set aside for special business groups. The government has specific goals it tries to meet in making awards to small business and so forth. It strives to give 23% of all its contracts to small businesses, for example, to support and stimulate small business success. If a set-aside is listed as NA or not applicable, then it is open to all to compete, large, small, everyone. Small business are distinguished by either the number of employees for manufacturing companies or amount of revenue for service-type companies. The size standard are determined by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, for every NAICS code. Other set-asides could require a veteran or woman-owned company also, or a hub zone company, which stands for the historically underutilized business zone area. The hub zone is a special certification that must be applied for and renewed every 3 years, and requires the majority of your employees to live in a designated and underutilized business area. Also, there are mandated sources such as the National Industries for the Blind, or federal prisons, industries known as Unicor, and only they can bid on certain acquisitions. With that, we're going to go to the next slide, and Mary Phelan is going to walk you through some important details on setting up and getting started on these notices.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, so here's what FedBizOps, or FBO, which I normally refer to it as, looks like. So these are some screenshots. To get registered in FBO, you do need some of the same information that you needed to get set up in SAM. So your DUNS code, your cage code, etc. And right here, hopefully you can see where I'm circling, but there is a Getting Started tab, which if you go through that, believe it or not, it is pretty self-explanatory. Today, I do want to focus more on how to set up searches and look for things. So your homework will be to go in and get an account and get started on your own after this. So you can have multiple accounts per company. So if you wanted different people to look up different searches or just kind of divide and conquer, know that that is available. And you don't have to actually be logged in to look for a search. If you do want to save a search though, or set up a watch list, you do have to get an account and be logged in. But this is what the screen looks like when you are not logged in. Okay, so now I'm just going to do a real quick search. Let's just see if I want to check on a solicitation or a keyword popped into my head that I want to look up. I'm thinking what would be out under there under the word cloth. So I'm just going to type in cloth, and it'll bring me everything that's been posted for the last 90 days and no other filtering. Okay, so when I do that, oh my gosh, I don't know if you can see my screen, but that brought back 327 results. So that is way too many to be effective. So in order to make this useful, I'm going to have to narrow this down and set up an automated search agent, especially if you envision repeating this search over and over. So now I need to log in, and you can tell that I'm logged in because my screen changed. It now says My FBO. And so this is tailored to just me. And to set up a search agent, you're going to need to go to Saved Searches on the main page. Now mine says View Saved Searches because I already have quite a few saved searches set up. So when you first log in, it'll just say Saved Searches. So here you see some of the search agents that I have set up, and just to show you the difference in how they can be set up, on my very first page I have set up here, I've got 3 different ones. The first one is by NAICS code, and these ones listed here with my own labeling, they're the 313, 314, and 315 NAICS codes, which are pretty much textile or textile product type NAICS codes. And then I've got one here that's by all DLA, so it's by an agency. I just want to see what DLA is putting out there. And then I've got one by a keyword. So here I'm looking at the word backpack. So there's lots of different ways to set these up. I have several searches right now, and you may see that some are more effective than others or change them out. So I don't consider this like a static list, but let's see how you can set one up on your own. So at the bottom of that same tab, on the search agents tab, there's a little box here, and it just says add a new search agent. So it's just as easy as clicking that box and you can get started. So I think I'm going to use the search agent cloth probably over and over again. So I'm going to label this as cloth, and it can be anything that you want. And since I'm really just looking at new business, things that I want to bid on, I'm going to use a posting date of everything that's been posted in the last 21 days. Because if I go much beyond that or I leave it blank, you could get a lot of things that are expired and they just haven't been archived, or I just don't have enough turnaround time to answer the bid. So I'm going to leave that at 21 days. Then as far as the place of performance and the zip code, I'm going to just leave those blank because it's more helpful for people who are in the construction or service industry where you need to be located close to the point of where your service or product delivery is. So I'll leave those blank. Now this is still part of the same page. It's a very long page, so I had to break this up into different pages, but this is where we get to the set aside section. So I'm going to set these and click these for the ones that apply to my company. So I'm a partial small business and a total small business and a hub zone. So I'll click on those to kind of weed out everything else. And then I do want to definitely say what procurement types I want. So we talked earlier about the procurement life cycle. I'll want to select everything within that. And unfortunately, this is not in alphabetical order or the order of which they occur, but you'll select the sources sought and pre-solicitation, the combined synopsis, and then also you'll definitely want to watch any modifications, amendments, or cancellations so that you're always looking at the latest posting related to that. Also, sometimes when a contracting officer puts out a modification, it could be under a totally different number. So you want to make sure that you do have that clicked so you're always able to follow what's going along. I also like to click on the award notices, even if I don't bid on something, just because I like to keep on top of who my competition is for future bids. Now on this particular search agent, I'm actually going to filter this out a little bit more by the NAICS code. Now you can do separate searches just on NAICS code, but for the word cloth, I'm thinking I might get a lot of responses that might not apply, like a cloth band-aid, which is part of a medical, NAICS code. So I'm going to specifically set these towards the textile type of products to filter out anything that's kind of unnecessary. So it really is a good practice to set up lots of different searches so that you do capture everything, and you can even leave this blank, for the keyword doesn't need to be in there. Another way to do that is the classification codes. Like for this one, I could further filter this down into just the textiles classification code, but I'm thinking the word cloth might be in some of these other ones like individual equipment or clothing. So I'm not going to select this particular filter for this setup, but just so you're aware, you can set up just filters on their own with just the classification code and no keyword and get everything that's out there. Okay, so the bottom of this page is some other searches that really aren't used quite as much, like the J&A, which is the justification and approval, which is the sole source, and some of these other ones. I really don't use any of those, and frankly, if you have your keywords and your NAICS codes set well, these will pop up anyway, so I usually leave all those blank. So now I'm going to save it at the bottom. You'll notice that next to the Save button, there's also a Save and Schedule search agent. So there's more than one way to do this. What I like to do, though, is first manually run the search after you've saved it, just to tweak it or edit it and make sure that it is giving you exactly the kind of results that you think. And then you can go ahead and schedule it. And I don't have this schedule screenshot in here, but it's just very easy. It asks you whether you want to schedule it daily or weekly or less frequently, but my suggestion is schedule it daily because of all the postings that come out, and the turnaround times, as we mentioned earlier, could be very short. Okay, so now I ran my search, and oh, thank goodness, it's only 38 results versus the more than 300 that I had before. So this gives me a much more focused view of what to look at. And just to note that since this was the first time I ran this, I got 38 results. However, when I set this up automatically scheduled, I will only see the items that I haven't seen before day to day. So you'll notice here, there was only one new posting in between June 9th and June 10th, and that's what will come to me in my daily email. So it does have links directly to the solicitation, and this deployment gear looks kind of interesting to me, so I'm going to investigate that one a little bit further. Now, I'm going to want to watch this and see what goes on with this, or maybe I don't have time right at the moment to respond to that. Just so I don't forget it, I'm going to put it on my watch list, and it's just as easy as clicking that button to put it in your list. So you see, I do have several items here in my watch list. That one went to the top since it's the newest, but some of these other ones that I was watching, like I'm watching some plate carriers for some soft armor, fabrics. I'm looking at some Berry Amendment compliant fabric. So I've got these all in my watch list, and I can remove those at any time if I decide I just can't go after them, or it just doesn't apply. So here I'm going to keep my deployment one in there and see what happens tomorrow when my email comes. Okay, so you've done all the work. So FBO now is doing the work for you. You don't even have to log in day to day to see what new items are out there. This is the email that came to me for my search agent of cloth. And so here's my deployment gear, and it's summarized very nicely. It says what it is and the solicitation number and who the agency is, when it's posted, also the base type, which is where it's at in the solicitation life cycle. You'll want to make sure you pay attention to that, because if this is already at the combined synopsis stage, I might be too late jumping in at this point. I don't know. I'll have to investigate further. And then here's a link that takes me straight to the solicitation in FBO. So before we actually look at that solicitation, though, a few key words of what to look for while you're reading it. First of all, look for what stage the solicitation is in. Remember our conversations about the different types of postings, and you'll definitely want to monitor it for any modifications or amendments to see if something has changed. Also, you'll want to scan the verbiage to see if there's an approved source, because if there is, you can't bid on that until you go through a special SAR package, which is a source approval request process, and that can be lengthy. And it does involve some investment on your company's part to submit drawings and technical documents. So just be aware that if it does say that, you can't bid on that for that bid, but it might be something you want to pursue at a different time. Same on the mandated source. If you're not the named mandated source, you'll need to pass on that as well. Now, GSA schedules, which are the General Services Administration schedules, they take a bit of work to do. And if it does say on there you need to be a GSA bidder to bid on this solicitation, you can't bid on it unless you're already approved and have one of those schedules. So if it says that and I don't have one, I need to keep moving. Now, reverse auctions are fine as long as you know what they are. They're to be used with caution. The concept is the reverse of eBay. So the lowest bidder wins. So just be aware of that and don't get caught up in the frenzy. Okay, other details to pay special attention to are due dates and quantities and delivery schedules. You want to make sure that you can adhere to those because those are typically non-negotiable. There could be some special certifications required. Remember that ballistic vest that I was looking at? That probably takes some sort of NIJ or National Institute of Justice certification, and that is lengthy and expensive to get. So if your company doesn't want to invest in that ahead of time with no guarantee of a win, or you just don't have time to do something like that, you may just need to pass. Okay, there's also going to be packages and other technical documents to pull down on the solicitation. Make sure you do get all of these and understand what you're signing up for. So as mentioned earlier, mil specs and standards, there's usually at least one that's referred to in the solicitation, and they can be referred or gathered from a website called ASSIST, which is the Acquisition Streamlining and Standardization Information System. So, for example, there's a mil standard that is almost always referred to in every solicitation for some kind of manufacturing, and that's mil standard 129. And right now it's on version R1. So you do want to make sure you're using the latest version, and it's not always a good idea to go out there and just save the version. You always want to make sure you're using the most current one. So I would urge you to go out to Assist and just make sure that you pull down the most current version. Also, if a solicitation is marked secure documents or locked, these are normally ITAR or export controlled, and so if you don't have the special JCP license or Joint Certification Program license to look at those drawings, you're not going to be granted access to either that or any technical documents. Now, let's just say I don't have time to complete a response to a source assault or a solicitation. I can mark myself as an interested bidder or an interested vendor just by clicking one of the boxes. And what that'll do, it'll at least indicate to the contracting officer that I am capable of making this, interested in following the bid through the life cycle, or it also can be a notice to other people, other companies that may need subcontractors on an effort. Okay, so here is the solicitation in detail that I saw on the deployment gear. All right, this top section here is exactly what I saw on my email with the solicitation number and the agency and the location. Very key though on this is the right-hand column. You can really quickly scan this and figure out if it's something that you are capable of doing or want to go after. And the first section has got all of my files that I will need to pull down, and that can also be accessed from a separate tab called Packages here. But then in the general information, very quickly I can assess. Here it's got to where it's at in the bid life cycle. It's already a combined synopsis. My response date, oh, luckily I actually have 2 weeks to do this, which is very nice that I have a full 2 weeks to respond to this. Some of them, only give you 3 days, so you really got to watch the response date. And if it's even 1 minute late, it will not be accepted. You will be deemed non-responsive, so you really do need to pay attention to the response time. Down below also I see the set-asides, so this is a total small business. I could respond to that. And the classification code, here it was rolling up into the clothing classification code, so I'm really glad I did not just specify the textile one because I would have missed this. And then the NAICS code, it got cut off here, but then it's got the NAICS code in there as well. So very quickly, you scan this right-hand column and can tell if it's something you want to pursue. And then I move over here into the body, the synopsis here, and read through, see what the item is. And already I can tell it says the first 14 items are brand name only. So unless this is my brand name or I'm a distributor who can get a quote from the manufacturer of that brand name, I probably cannot bid on this and I'd have to pass. But here you see how I very quickly went through this whole thing and I didn't even have to pull down the actual solicitation bid document, which can be, anywhere from 10 to 100 pages to fill out, but it makes you able to filter these things out very quickly. Now this is still part of the same page, but at the bottom here I see, oh, there is a J&A package or a justification and approval package. So this is a sole source. I'm not going to be able to bid on this one. One other thing though to point out on this page is there will always be a primary point of contact, at least an email and a phone number. And this one is a little unusual in that it doesn't have a name. You'll usually see the contracting officer's name. So there is a point of contact. However, you may not always be able to ask questions depending upon where it is in the life cycle. So since this is already in the combined synopsis stage, I probably cannot ask a question unless it is then posted to all other bidders to see the question and answer, because at this stage in the game, there is not going to be any unfair advantage to any particular bidder. Now on this slide, I just wanted to show quickly what this packages tab looks like. I usually like to go straight to this one just because I find it cleaner and I make sure that I don't miss any of the packages that I need to download. So now this is a sole source one, but I know that I'm capable of making some of these items. I'm just going to add myself to the interested vendor list, and you can do that. It also might be where I could be contacted by someone to be a subcontractor. So this is just where you add yourself to the interested vendor list. So now you've read through all that, you want to actually respond to the solicitation. So the most important thing is to read the entire proposal because you have to make sure you know what you're signing up for, especially the FAR clauses or the Federal Acquisition Regulation clauses. If you're not familiar with the FAR, it's a detailed book, but thank goodness it's now online, that explains the acquisition process and how it's handled for goods and services to the government in very minute detail. And the one section that you'll want to pay close attention to is FAR Part 52, which are the clauses. And these clauses in your contract will be unilaterally applied from the government. You don't get to negotiate these, so just make sure you've read them all, you can do them, adhere to them, and you know what you're signing up for. So in the solicitation, it's also important to note the exact item and description of what's requested and the delivery dates. Sometimes the delivery dates are very aggressive and you do not want to be late on a contract delivery as it will count against you. Now, in responding, you can propose a delivery date outside of the delivery schedule if you don't feel it's achievable to you, but just be aware that there could be others who can adhere to the delivery schedule, so it's just something to make note of. Now on marking, packaging, shipping, labeling, there is a whole science to this. And if you just think about the thousands and thousands of products that the government receives in every day to all their various warehouses and depots, everything needs to be standardized. So you have to make absolutely sure you know what's required, or it could cause hiccups in it being received into the location and then you won't get paid. So you have to make sure that you're following that exactly. If there's special testing required, like the government wants to test certain material components, they're assuming you know what that means and how much it costs, and they might not be very overt at spelling that out. So just make sure that special testing or first articles, if they're not broken out, that is built into your bid price. Okay. So now, as far as actually submitting the proposal, I wish there was one consistent way to do this. So unfortunately, there is not, but some of the main methods to do this is it could be an email back to the contracting officer that just has the packages attached. It could be an upload into FBO. Other times you may need to go to a separate site called DIBS, which is the Defense Logistics Agency Internet Bid Board System, and those are for all DLA items, and quote it right there. There's also other separate sites, like the Navy has their own separate site called NECO, or the Navy Electronics Commerce Online site. There's other third-party administered sites called FedBid, etc. So the moral of the story is that you just need to read the solicitation notice and the documents and make sure you follow exactly how the bid is to be turned in. And like I said, hopefully not 1 minute late. So, okay, let's see. Well, I guess we'll wrap up here. So there's obviously a lot of other key decisions you'll want to make before you respond to a solicitation, like you're going to want to do your market research, understand who your competition is, your timing and scheduling and capacity, etc. There's other public tools you can use for market research, private tools. But this is just a way that we can get you going and looking at some tailored searches on your own. And also to note, on the FBO website, there's user guides and some videos available that you can peruse at your leisure. Also, I like to mention that there is a Procurement Technical Assistance Center, PTAC office, which everyone should have one fairly close to where you're located. They're all throughout the United States, and their goal is to get companies help on getting started with contracting and doing business with the government. So with that, I think we are ready to wrap up. So are there any questions? I think I'm turning this back over to Jen.
Let's see here. All right, we've got a handful of questions. Let me start by asking, what kinds of projects or items are made sole source, and how are those companies chosen to be the sole source sought of?
Well, a lot of times it can be because the company itself developed the product, and they own the drawings and all the IP associated with that. So they are the sole source. The government might not have any drawings, but in a situation like that, if you really felt you could make that product and do it as well, that's where you would go through the SAR process and go through a proposal and package preparation, do your own drawings, and try to submit to the government why you are just as good or better than the competition out there. So most of the time, it's just that the government does not own the drawing or the IP, and there's only one source that they're aware of.
All right, and the next question is, what does the process involve to be granted access to those documents, secure documents? Is it worth the process?
Actually, I don't think it's a difficult process. You just need to fill out uh, a form DD 2345. But basically, if you go out and search on joint certification process, JCP, and get a JCP license, it's just saying that there's going to be one person in your company that is the administrator of all your export control. You're going to make sure and keep your documents secure for foreign nationals, etc. So it does take a couple of months to get the agreement back, but it's really not hard to get the actual certification.
Great. Next question is, what is the process to become an approved vendor on an item that is considered to be a sole sourced item?
I might have already answered that in the first question, but it is going through that source approval request process, or SAR package. And there actually is some good information out on dla.mil, which explains the whole process. I think there's even a handout out there of how you would go through it, and a template to fill out, etc. But that, it's not instantaneous. And like I said, you do have to make an investment in your own time to develop your own drawings, or come up with your white paper and proposal of why you would be just as good or better than the competition.
Great. Next question is, what certifications have helped you the most as far as IST 900, etc.?
Well, ISO certified for sure. I mean, the government definitely likes you to be ISO certified. They like the JCP certification. Some of the set-asides have helped us, as far as just being a small business and getting our hub zone certification. So that has helped. I think those are probably some of the most beneficial.
Great. Next question is, do the PTAC offices help with preparing SAR packages?
They can, if you request their help, they can help you walk through a template and help you fill it out. So I found them to be very helpful in the past. They've got a lot of knowledgeable people at their site, and they're all over the US.
Great. Next question is, are all the Gov bids listed on the FBO page, or is there another page to follow?
Well, FBO only has everything over $25,000. So the DIBS page that I talked about earlier, that does have items that aren't always on FBO, and there could be smaller dollar amounts. So FBO is really just one source. There's other bid pages to go to. It's just that FBO is definitely the most comprehensive, and it has all government agencies, where the DIBS only has just DLA, so that's why I start with FBO.
Great. Next question, are all parts required to be Berry compliant?
Not necessarily. I mean, sometimes there is not a known source in the United States, and so they get a non-domestic availability, or an NDA approval. So for a lot of hardware, that only certain pieces of hardware are made overseas now, and they will make an exception for Berry compliance if they know that there's items that are not available domestically.
Okay. Next question is, how do we find a local PTAC office?
Okay, I should have put that link in the presentation, but if you go to the link, let's see, it's aptac-us.org. I believe there's a map on there, and you just click on your state and your location, and you can find where your closest office is to you.
Great. I think that is all for questions. Thank you so much, Mary and Jeff, for the great presentation today. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to talk about some upcoming events?
Yes.
Yeah, so 2 exciting events coming up. IFAI Expo is October 2nd through 4th in Orlando. And then the military division for the 4th time is having a booth at AUSA, and military members do have the opportunity to exhibit with us. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to Janelle Berkeley and get more information on that. Okay, and then I think with that, we're ready to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.